Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Esports Makers podcast. I'm your host Sam, aka Just Casual. I have with me a special guest, my coworker actually, Crystal Aw, aka Noodle Brains, or
You got
other many other names like Dank S and some other good stuff.
it.
How's
Yeah, got a few, but
it
these are
going?
some of them. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I'm kind of losing my voice, but I think it'll hold on. So we'll see how that goes.
Power through, Sam.
I'm super excited about this one because, like I said, you're my coworker. We kind of came into Golden Guardians around the same time, so we're like that second wave of hires, I guess, for Golden Guardians. I think roughly something like that.
I don't know. I think so.
I
I
mean,
guess like the
after
second chunk. Well,
yeah,
it was just me and you, right?
pretty much. I would like to say that I think after we came in, we were not a 10th place team anymore. So that was I don't know who who did that,
Not gonna
but
say.
yeah. But yeah, just to for people that don't know who you are, because you're not super active on social media. Um,
Yeah,
not to call you out.
I'm trying.
But yeah, so you came in as the art director. You did a lot of like t-shirt designs, you did a lot of the artwork that we've seen on social media, and probably the big splash as like our org has gotten better and performed better and gotten bigger. You did the whole Golden Guardians rebranding. You eventually became creative director, and I think one of your big things that you've put out lately that a lot of people have seen is the Going for Gold docuseries, the 4-part episodic series that we put out recently. So I know there's a lot of other things, probably plenty of things that we don't even remember at this point.
Gotta go through the Dropbox of
Yeah,
unsynced
seriously.
files.
But that is Crystal. So with that, I think we're gonna talk a lot about like the docuseries, a lot of the rebranding. But before we get to that, I want to talk about your esports career because also you came from the agency world, right? Before you came into esports.
Yep. When I was in DC, actually before that, I was working as a UI UX designer at a
Oh,
startup. Yeah, and then I moved into agency, was there for almost 3 years, and then I started freelancing, I think for a year, and then I came here. But all of
okay,
that was in DC or
yeah.
DC area. I'll just call it that.
So, I think that's interesting. Okay, there's so many things I want to ask you actually, but let's just start with that. Like from pretty much college to now, like how did you get into esports? Was that even in consideration during that whole time? Yeah, tell me that story.
No, I mean, I didn't. I mean, when I was in college, I didn't really think it was a career path, right? Or I wasn't
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I'm gonna be a designer for esports, and also being on East Coast and just not really knowing it's an option.
Hmm.
I didn't think of it, but I think just gradually over time, and then when I was freelancing, and I knew, um, at least gaming was an interest of mine, at least throughout my entire life. So that was part of the influence. And then esports I didn't really get into until I'm working in it now, and I feel like I'm really invested in it. Where before I think I was more focused on design uh just as a discipline, right? And
Okay.
trying to get better at that. And because coming from agency, it's you work on a lot of different clients, and even freelance, it's a lot of different people or companies, you get a wide array of projects you get to work on. But esports is just so interesting and diverse, in what you get to work on, campaigns and the photo shoots and stuff. So
Hmm.
being in it now, I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. Because it's technically in house, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
you get to do so we've gotten to do so much, say, at Golden Guardians, that it feels like an agency sometimes, and also the pace that we work at.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, I know Digon, or do you know Digon?
Yeah, yeah. I know of him. I've never met him in person, but I was like, oh, Deacon's this cool guy that's like shoutcasting League of Legends stuff and he's a new face. So I was like a
Yeah,
fan
so
of
well,
him.
shout out to Digon. But we were roommates in Virginia before he came here, and
Hmm.
then and then he was the one who was like, oh, like you should try, like just do this freelance project for Golden Guardians, and then that's like what ultimately got the ball rolling, right? Because
Oh,
then I
interesting.
just did projects like back to back after that, and
Hmm.
like and then the job offering opened up for art director, and like um Daniel told me, or I don't know if anyone was
Our boss
aware. Daniel
Daniel
Beard, yeah,
Spelsy.
Spelsy. Hey, Daniel was like, oh yeah, you should apply for it. And then I was like, oh, like what? Why not? Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
go for it.
Uh,
Yeah. So now I'm here.
That's really cool. And so on Twitter, what I see a lot of people that are doing graphic design, art, whatever that whole realm looks like, because I'm super not familiar with it. I see a lot of people freelancing and they're trying really hard, working long hours, like making emotes for people, Twitter banners, getting harassed by people like, make me free stuff. Why aren't you making me free stuff? I give you extra, like, all that kind of like stereotypical
Yeah.
stuff. And then I see a lot of them like really desperate to get like full-time positions, right? So
Hmm.
one thing that I don't understand in my head, my pea brain or my uncreative side is like, what is going on there, and where's the how do you get over that gap to maybe find full-time work?
Oh, so you just mean like going from freelance to full time, or just
Yeah,
like the type of freelance work you get?
going from freelance to full-time. If people are looking for
Oh,
that are like artists.
okay. It's different because like artists, I think illustrators is like slightly different, right, than
Okay,
like design, because like I do illustration as well as design, but design is like my main focus, and that's like the thing that like went to school for, and so that's like I think my expertise lies there more than illustration, where illustration was just like
gotcha.
it was always along for the ride. Like
Uh-huh,
I was like,
uh-huh.
oh, I like kind of know how to do this, so I'll just incorporate it in like design. But not
Hmm.
every it's not like always a one to one, right? Like not every designer will be an illustrator or the other way around. But like if you have the skills to do illustration and then learn design, or the other way around, like that's awesome. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's so valuable. So like if you're so I guess like if you're an artist, right? So to answer your question, if you're an artist and you want to get into design, I think it's like if you have a good eye, like I think you can learn it, but you do have to learn a lot of like foundational aspects, right? Because like designing is a lot of like learning how to create layouts, or like hierarchy, like within, and communication, right, is a lot of it
Hmm.
is like about being able to communicate information or like a feeling to the audience. And so yeah, I don't know, I guess it depends, like if you want to go design route, like I know how to answer that, but it's like artists, I know, like I mean I have like friends who do that free time, like full time, right, like they're
Yeah.
freelancing and they're making like a good living off of it as an illustrator. But it's like you have to know your worth, right? And then you have
Mm.
to also find the people who like understand your worth too. Because
Oh, interesting.
there's a lot of clients out there who like, or and you can't really blame a lot of people, because it's like sometimes it's hard to grasp like how much something is worth, right? Especially like illustration or like art, where it's like, oh well, you're just like, a lot of people will say, oh, like you're just naturally gifted or you're talented, but it's like no, there's like a lot of work you probably put behind it to
Yeah.
get good, to like to continue to get better. And so I think just like having the mutual understanding and respect is like that, you need to find that, and then like you
Mhm.
have to like also be willing to know like, oh, and like I want to make like this much, like hourly, or I need to make this much, for the month. And so you need to like plan out your project, like you need to
Yeah, yeah.
find the clients who will like support that, instead of, because I know I am aware there are a lot of like people out there who do, they want to get cheap work, and that's always gonna be a thing, but you just have to find the right people to work with.
Sure. So then I guess one thing from there is like, how do you figure out your worth as a someone in the creative field?
Yeah, that's hard, right? I mean, I think for a long time, like before I like freelanced for a year, just like full time, like I wasn't sure either. And it's like it takes so long to figure out. And like, you're always gonna be shifting, your opinion of yourself,
Hmm.
or like you're like you have to also be aware and like how you put your work out into the world, or like to your audience or whoever, whatever clients you're trying to get, you have to like target those specific people. You know, like if you want to do like a certain type of work, you have to like cater your portfolio to that. And so like
Okay.
and I mean sometimes it does help like if you have like clients or projects on there that are well known. And that always helps because then people right off the bat will like look at it and be like, "Oh, you worked for I don't know, I'll just throw out like Blizzard or something, right? You did
Hmm.
this project for Blizzard." Like that's already gonna give you like uh the um like prestige. You know, like there's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
certain brands that'll have
Like
like the prestige
validation or
behind it.
something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then you definitely know like uh how much you would be able to charge, right? Or I guess it would also be um hold on, let me think of like the right way
Yeah,
to
no
phrase
problem.
it. um I think it's also like the amount of people who are like, they're reaching out to you for work. Like then you can like then you can pick and choose. But if I think if you're just getting started, it doesn't hurt to like try a lot of different things out, right? Or even
Hmm.
if like uh the rate isn't like exactly what you want, if it's a project you're really excited about, you really want to do it, that's also fair, right? I don't think there's like one right way to do it, but it's like
Sure.
I think at the end of the day, it's like you got to have like your self-respect for like how much your work is worth, and like just like if you're good and you believe you're good, you should try to match, your expectations to that. But I mean, that's also tricky too, because like you might have a big ego. And then maybe that doesn't quite work out. But that I know sometimes that works for people too. It's just like could go so many different routes.
Do you have like do you have trusted people or like resources where you can be like asking them, is this good or bad? And like really trust their opinions, like to figure that kind of stuff out?
I, Good or bad, like if I had a design and I was like, "Hey, like, can you help? Like, just give me constructive feedback,"
Uh
or
huh.
like, Is this actually good, or am I just crazy?"
Yeah, yeah.
I have a couple people actually, like who we all worked like at the agency in DC. It was called ISL.
Hmm.
And so there's a couple designers and like art directors that I worked with there, and we're still like really close. And we will share a project with each other all the time, and like get each other's opinions because it's good to gauge. It's like it kind of like keeps me level headed because uh I know. I mean, just like within our company, there's not another like designer who's working full time, so it's like
Hmm.
it's a different, like, language, right? Like, it's like, "Oh, I need to get, like, feedback." It's like from you, I know what kind of feedback I wanna get from you, but then it's like, oh, like, if it's purely, like, design oriented, I need to add like, it's like, "Oh, I should probably reach out to, like, my design, like, network in a
Yeah,
way."
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I feel like that would be really important with like creative stuff. Like I wish like when I started off with Golden Guardians, I was doing like video editing stuff and it was I don't know who to ask. I didn't know who to ask for feedback cuz we didn't really like we had one video editor at the time,
Mhm.
but he wasn't there often. And
Yeah.
then um and then so then I was just asking
True.
like, is this video funny? And then it was kind of weird because I almost had to like put it out to the masses. Like, the like a lot of things I put out were like meme videos. And then I just waited like, did people like it or retweet it? And then that was kind of like I think that can be an unhealthy way to gauge. Like I think it can be accurate or inaccurate. It could be misleading. And it's very I think it could be unhealthy because it started like stress me out a lot. Like how many views did this tweet get? And then I'm like, wait, is it because we posted it at like Friday instead of Thursday? And then like trying to
Yeah,
figure out
there's
all
so
these
many
excuses.
factors, right?
Yeah. So I felt like I didn't have anyone to actually be like, is this good or bad? Or like, is this bad, but people still liked it and it's acceptable? Or like, should I have done different things? Or was there like an easy fix for whatever? And um, yeah, I always wondered like if creative people had that kind of access to people and had like I guess like a think tank almost, right? And how valuable that
Know what
is.
it is. Yeah, it's a little think tank, and it's like I I think at least it'll tell you, technically, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I usually go to them for because 'cause they're not, uh, necessarily esports oriented,
Mhm.
designers. Some of them are, but it's like they'll be able to tell me, like, if I'm missing something or like I didn't catch something, right? And honestly, sometimes you guys tell me that too. Like
Hmm.
I've been looking at something for so long. It's like getting the second opinion always helps.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think it's like hard to quantify or like with likes or views and like you're saying, it's like, oh my god, like did I mess up? But it's like, was it the timing? Was it
Hmm.
this or that? But and especially with like humor, like because you were doing a lot of the meme videos. I think coming in and I mean,
Hmm.
even now, but, like, at the time, that was, like, your strict that was the only thing you were working on. It's like I could, like, feel how stressful that was because I was like, "Oh my god, you're trying to, like, make something funny, but you've been watching it so many times, you're not even sure if
I'm
it's
like, this
funny
isn't
anymore."
funny anymore. I've heard this joke 20,000 times in a row for the last two
Yeah.
days. I'm like, this is not funny. Or I think it's funny, and then like no one laughs. I'm like, okay, it's not. They didn't say you're not funny. Something was wrong with the video edit. That is not
Yeah,
me.
it's
That
like
video doesn't represent me. I'll go cry in the bathroom now or something, like something like that. So,
you can't take it personally. I mean,
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit, but not too much.
Cool. One thing I also want to talk about, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been wanting to make a video on my YouTube channel a little bit about this, but I honestly don't like have, I feel like enough knowledge to talk about it very broadly yet. So I like wanted to ask people, you're someone that after college, you graduated, found quote unquote real life like work or professional work, right? And you worked at an
Yeah.
agency. Then you also, I
Mhm,
mean, yeah, you did freelance for a year and had clients. And then you jumped into esports. And I
mhm.
feel like now when people are in college, they're like, oh, esports is a legitimate thing. It's like on a lot of people's radars. And like, how do I get
Yeah.
into esports? How do I get into esports? And then, especially like
Mhm.
while you're in college, that whole pressure of like, your life depends on if you get a job or not, and like if you don't get a job you're like a complete failure, and like all like there's all this like weird pressure from family, from all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then I kind of think that a lot of people that are trying to get into esports, like 90% of them, I don't know what the number is, but should go out to the world, work 3 years or something in whatever their profession is, and then come into esports. Do you have any thoughts on that as someone that has done that?
I mean, I guess because you were an engineer before you were in
Yeah.
esports too, so we both have, like, slightly I mean, mine is still, like, within design. You're Sam, I don't know what like, you just total, like,
I had a
180.
quarter life crisis at 25.
Hey, but it worked out,
Yeah,
and
it
now
did.
you get
I
to do
think
what
it
you
did.
love, Um, I don't that's hard to say. I think, because maybe I could see it going both ways, but like you could argue, if you work in your field, like the traditional route, right? Or
Hmm.
like if you go, even if you go in house somewhere else, or maybe a place that has like a solid like foundation for like
Mm,
how they run, like the and I guess in this example, like the design process, like I think it's at least I think I found it valuable because you just get exposure to like I guess a lot of people who probably like are doing the same thing you are, right? Like, or um, they came from a similar background, like they went to school for design, and now like they also came out of college, and or they came out from another studio, and
mhm,
now they're working at the same agency. So I feel like you get a lot of good like networking opportunities for like the field, right? Like
mhm,
your discipline or craft that you're working on, and then to be able to go into esports is like, oh, now you have like that experience where it's like more like I guess you'd say just I guess like non esports related work, but then you get to take that knowledge and like that the diversity, it's a kind of like a different way of thinking, but then you get to apply it to esports or um just see like, find the ways like, "Oh, like, I did this before in the studio or in another in-house place, and now I can apply it here." 'Cause,
mhm.
I mean, I think esports is, like, young, right? It's, like, young. It's still young. I mean, even our team is, like, pretty small,
I mean, the
so
org is what, 3 years, 4 years old, 2 years old. I think
eh, wait,
2018.
3
I think it
years?
came in. I don't even know. It feels like a decade, like
I
literally.
think 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Because we both weren't here the first year,
Uh,
and that was the back-to-back 10th place, and
yeah. We don't talk about
and then
those days.
well, like, we weren't there, so and then the 2 year yeah, so yeah, this Oregon's only been around for 3 years, so,
Yeah,
I
and like
mean
it started off with three people, like three non-competitive people running the show. Is it Daniel, Rachel,
I
Hunter,
think so.
something like that?
Yeah, right?
Johnny shortly after.
And Johnny was like a little bit after.
Yeah, so that's like 4 people running a whole shebang, like
Yeah.
on the business side of things. Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, I kind of want like that's the thing. I've only worked for Golden Guardians, right? And unfortunately, I haven't networked as much as I wanted to in esports, and that's why one of the reasons why I'm trying to do this because I want to talk to people. But like
Hmm.
a team like CLG or TSM that's been around since the beginning of League of Legends, like I want to believe that they like have their shit together and they know what's going on and like they have like a clean running machine. I feel like they probably don't because it's esports, but like I have no idea. But then yeah, like you said, if you come from a background that has like people that's been doing this for decades, mentors, like organ- organized structure and like ways of doing things rather than like let's do something. How do we do it? And everyone's like no one knows how to do it and everyone's like learning random skills and trying to put it together and hoping like crossing their fingers that when they press the go button and everything works, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, which is also really fun at the same time. Stressful and
Like
fun.
it does feel, it feels like a startup, right? Like it's kind of what it is.
Oh, I guess
But
like you worked at a startup before, right?
yeah,
What was
but
that like?
this still feels crazier than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy. Oh, that's so funny.
At times it's okay.
um,
um
any other thoughts on that?
what else I Oh no, I just think, yeah, it's like I this is obviously like my first org in esports too, so that's just all I have to go off of as well. But yeah, I think it's probably like pretty similar, right, across orgs. But yeah, I mean, I would love to hear more about it. And I think it's because like we're both like new to the industry too,
Hmm.
right? At least working in it, it's like still trying to figure that out, and like obviously need to get to know more people, like working
Yeah,
on like the I guess the staff side or like organizational aspects of it. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, was what were your expectations on esports, and like where did it miss the mark or hit the mark, or like completely blindside you?
Huh. I don't think I was like blindsided or anything. I think I had a pretty decent idea going into it. I think the hmm, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think anything surprised me. It's just like, oh, this is like. I think I just really like the when I, like going to the LCS. I
Hmm.
actually had been before I had started working here too because had visited LA
Oh,
actually
nice.
to go to Anime Expo a couple of times. But like we would go, I've seen the a couple games before, but like so I think that's what made me realize like, oh, like I had a bit of an idea, right? At least like
Mm,
the live experience, and then but being here, like working for Golden Guardians and like being part of the org, it like has such a different weight to it. I think I wasn't expecting to be so invested. Or
yeah.
just like it's like it hurts so much when we lose when or like feels really awesome when we win, like that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, I never thought I like would be so close to the action,
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's what surprised me the most.
Yeah, I think like going off of that for me, like I also realized more like the human side of things too. Cause I've been
Yeah.
on the side where I'm yelling on Twitter like, "Oh my gosh, drop that player! Like, what are you doing?" Like watching Golden
Yeah,
Guardians
indeed.
going 10th place twice. I'm just like, what is this organization? And I had all my critiques and like what, like
Hmm.
Rachel brings this up every now and then. Our social media manager, like I put out a video when I was like trying to grind and like network and figure things out. I put out a video like pretty much flaming Golden Guardian's YouTube channel and their content feed. And Rachel
She's
told
never
me
gonna
like
forget that.
I know she's like, who is this guy? Who does it think he is? Like she was pissed off at me. And like I didn't mean to go like I didn't start the video off trying to flame them, but I definitely forgot like what I was doing and stopped being professional a few times. But like now being on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, like how could they have put together like a crazy docuseries when there's like no one working behind the scenes on this because of different business strategies or whatever. And then also like on the competitive side of things, like I have so much more insight on what's going on with like our players, and I still feel like I'm not in tune with our players enough, and like our competitive side of the our organization. But like all these things that you see on stage, people are like, "What are they doing?" or "Why did they do that?" And then you see behind the scenes, like, "Oh, it makes so much more sense," or like, "Oh, it's like 10 times more complicated than that," and like
Mhm.
we never can talk about it until like I don't know, we're gone from the org or like something happens, you know?
I mean, there's
So
just so many moving pieces, right? And there's so much
yeah.
nuance to it. And like, I think we understand that more, so we have more,
Mhm.
like when people get flamed, it's like, no, like I feel for that, like
Mhm.
I would never want to like say that or make someone feel bad because of something I wrote online.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's no point either. It's just like, come on.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch on to more things that are maybe related to what we do. I want to talk about the Going for Gold docuseries. Uh
Okay.
Man, where do I even start? How was that project for you? Because that was like your first time taking on like a video project, right?
Yeah, like at least for like our YouTube content and
Uh-huh.
like because I've done like the social video, like the Goda or Guardians of the Abyss event, right?
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
those small like videos and stuff, but first like full blown one, and
Just
like
a
under
big
as
one.
like I guess I was a creative director too, right? Yeah, and I was like, yeah, it was intimidating because that's
Yeah, yeah.
my background is not in like in video necessarily, right? Like I
Mhm.
had experience in it just like working in the agency side and like having to do production design or like props and like sometimes we would do like shoots in studio and but being the one to like lead it here and like a docu series of all things too, it's like and it's stressful because it's like we're trying to figure out the story, right? As the split is happening.
Yeah.
So that was really stressful. And I mean, huge shout out to like Justin, Alex, and Miles for like really like sticking with it. And like also you, Sam, helped us a lot. In
I tried.
figuring out like all the pieces and like, watching the split unfold is just like, oh, and it's like how are we gonna portray it, right?
Mhm.
And like in a way that like uh we'll get people to understand it's like all the emotional side of it, the like competitive, it's like it's all these things. It's not just like they're there to play, like
Yeah.
there to win kind of thing. It was just like I think we wanted to convey that it was like um more than that, right? It was a bigger experience and
Mhm.
like being able to like be there with them, I think is like was a big thing we wanted to achieve with that. And also I think the fact that we like put it all out at the end, like being able to like curate the story in a way that like wasn't just gonna bore people because it's like super super long or anything, make it concise. These are like the big moments, right, of our split.
Mhm.
And I think that was a different take as well, and like, I think we wanted to do something different
Yeah.
in terms of like approaching docu-series.
Yeah, I mean, I shared that little the last part of the podcast I had with Parks, who I don't know if he's still in chat, but he stopped by and he was like saying like, "Oh yeah, esports content feels tired. Like he's seen it all. It's kind of like everything feels like a TSM Legends now. It's like the same formula and everything." And like we know that. Also, we know that I think the big thing that we're trying to or the big difficulties that we're trying to overcome was like docuseries are expensive to make. They require a lot of people, a lot of time, really fast timelines, especially if you're trying to bust them out like in a pretty much like 4 days if you're trying to do them weekly before the next
Yeah,
games pop up.
exactly.
And then like the people that get the most views are TSM, Team Liquid, C9, and only if they're winning. And then like you see 100 Thieves has like a really nice polished docuseries, did amazing when they did amazing, and now is not getting as many views, even though 100 Thieves is like still a huge organization. So we're like, we're Golden Guardians. People don't care about us. Now we have to put like this expensive thing together and somehow get lots of views. How do we do this?
No,
So it
I mean,
was
you remember when we were concepting it and like we're like, oh my gosh, like our like we don't have like the biggest fan base of all
uh,
of out of all the teams, and it's like all those challenges like adding up and just being like, okay, like let's hope it plays, to the audience. Let's hope
yeah.
they're picking up what we're putting down essentially. I mean, I think overall, like, I think the message, like, people understood, what we were going for. So I'm like really glad for that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think like it was funny because I remember we were talking like on Slack and we are just like, what is like success? And we're like, well, we don't really know like what is successful. Like we have this like I don't remember what the number was. But we had like a number like this is what we want to get our average monthly
mhm,
YouTube views to be. But then like that's not just a docuseries. Although I think that's how we've approached it right now, just with like resources and whatever other constraints that we have. But like we didn't really know what success would look like, and at that point I was just like just randomly making all these like assumptions and like okay if our videos did this in the past and we like get to playoffs, maybe hopefully we get to playoffs, and then like what would the numbers be, and like I was eventually came to like if we get 1,000 views per episode, which I think is really optimistic, like I think that would be success because like the biggest problem is no one cared about us or very little people cared about us. So why would they watch it even if there was unless we like do like crazy drama, there was some groundbreaking
mhm.
stuff happening, no one's watching it. And that's like why the first one we did back like um the Grayson one. What was it called?
It was like the role swap
Yeah, the
one,
Golden Rose.
right?
What was that
Talking
series
about
called?
last year.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Golden Age? Is
Yeah,
that what you're
Golden
thinking?
Age. Yeah, sorry. The reason why that one did well was one, it's a spring split, which always gets more viewership just in League of Legends every single year. Spring always gets better than summer viewership. We put in a roster announcement, which is like one thing that I feel like we figured out was good. Like when you put updates in there, and then we baited people so hard with Grayson role swapping because everyone's talking about Golden Glue's role swap, and then it was Keith, which was maybe the crazier idea. So it was like the perfect thing to get like 120 some K views. But then even after that, they just kept dropping and dropping. And we were doing, yeah, we started out like 1-4 or something like that. So that was also really tough, or 0-4.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't- oh, yeah, last spring? I can't remember, but yeah,
yeah.
it was a rough start.
Yeah. So then I was
Then we
like,
picked up at the end.
yeah. So then I was just like, okay, 10K views would be like really great. I think that would be a great start. That'd be really good for the docuseries. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I think like the first three, each one got maybe like 14 to 20K views or something. The last one got like more than all the first three episodes combined. I can't remember the details, but it did like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
slammed it out of the park. And even like the first week, we're kind of watching it, and it's like it's going up slowly, but like it's nothing crazy. It's nothing quote unquote viral, especially for like us and our channel. But
Mhm.
it ended up doing really, really, really well, like beyond my expectations. And I mean, our boss was happy finally.
I mean, when you if your bar Sam was 1K.
No, 10K, 10K, not
Oh, you
1K.
said 1K.
Sorry,
I was like,
did I say 1K? Sorry, 10K. That's what I at least meant
add
to say.
another zero to
Now, and I was
that.
like thinking like it's probably gonna get 8. I really hope it does better because also I really think that the content itself is like objectively like good, but the problem is like I don't think people, unless they're fans or unless you have something juicy, like no one cares about it. But the
Mhm,
cool thing that we did was one, competitive team did well, and two, we got people to care. And I think by actually putting out something regularly too, consistently. I mean, we threw them all like the first 3 episodes all at once. It released it, but like we finally got in front of people's faces enough and got them like forced them to care. Like we like shook them and be like, care about us, please.
please.
And then
I mean,
like
it did not hurt that our team was doing well, though. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that um, definitely helped it, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
and I think something interesting about that too, like when we look at other LCS teams docuseries, like everyone talked about competitive success being like the number one driving factor for docuseries, but we've seen teams in the past do better or very well that don't get views, and teams that do
mhm.
poorly still get views too. So like I used to think that, but now I think it's a lot more complex than just that simple. Like you got to win and people will watch. So like yes, it did help that we won or we were doing better, a lot better, and we're an exciting team. But it's just straight up like I think we captured like the right stories, we got the right emotions, we showed like transparency in it, and then like I I think everyone really appreciated like the freshness and like the obvious hard work that was put into like producing it, that like that won over at least like the fringe fans that were like, oh, Golden Guardian seems kind of cool, I like this closer dude. And it's like, okay, now I'm like, oh my gosh, Golden Guardians is like, I was a TSM fan, but now I'm also a TSM Golden Guardians fan, which is like the
I
best I
saw
feel like
all
I
of
can
those
ask.
comments.
Yeah, right. It was really cool because usually it's like you'll see a lot of negative comments, but everyone's like really positive on our organization right now. So that's like
Mhm.
really fun. It's nice. Finally.
It is nice. Like seeing that progression. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's like a lot of it was about like amplifying what was already there, like you're saying. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, we were winning, but we weren't always winning, right? And there were like the ups and downs to the split, and uh, just, but also like showing the support for the team, right? Is like
Yeah.
also a huge part of it. So it's like, yeah, but it's a huge, it's all these factors, like, and there's not one thing like you're saying that it's like not just like, oh, competitive or competitive success, right? It's not just like
Hmm.
that one thing. It's like you got to tap into all these different aspects of it.
Yeah. Uh, are you excited for next year? I don't
Uh,
know if we've officially talked about doing it next year, but um,
oh, yeah, going into like definitely starting earlier too.
dude, I don't even know. Our off season is still crazy. It's great because like we're actually on a 2 week vacation right now, everyone in the office, which is really nice and very much needed. But then I'm just like, I try not to think about what happens when we get back in the office because we have so much to do, and we haven't even started talking about LCS stuff yet. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
that's for like November probably,
Yeah,
right?
let's talk about that later.
We're in a WoW mode now.
Are there any things that you can remember from going for gold that you wish could have made the cut that didn't get like see sunshine?
Um, to be honest, I don't think so. I mean, like, even Justin's earlier cuts, right?
Hmm.
Like, there are those parts that I think almost got reworked, if you remember that, from those initial like 2 episodes. And but I was like, oh no, like, the part about like the failures, right? And then
Hmm.
the background, I was like, no, I think those were the things that if we had lost, I would have regretted. Like if
Mm.
we had actually cut those out, I would have been thinking about it and be like, oh man, but I really like that part, like it had a good
Yeah.
hook, had a good rhythm to it, and so I think like what's in there, I'm happy with. Like I don't feel like anything like big got cut out where I'm
Hmm.
see, I can't even remember it now, right?
Sure, sure. It's out of we're over it. We got other stuff to worry about anyway. We can't dwell on it.
No.
Yeah. No, I
I
think
mean,
something interesting that I started realizing was that like, and it's cool that we can tell the story after the fact, right? Because we know where the story is
mhm,
going, at least to like at least to the end of the season. Was
yep.
like we couldn't show, we shouldn't have shown like the team having their little blow up and like them having the long conversations and like Hanser and Huhi like kind of arguing in the VOD review room if like that never got resolved, right? Because that would make them look bad. And
Mhm,
but the thing is, since we were able to include it, I felt like it made that transparency like respected, and it made the players still look good because it was still like a growth arc or like a redemption arc. But like, I would have been really sad if we couldn't include that stuff because I thought that was like really good, really real. But it would just made our players look bad, and then I would have been like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, we have responsibility to our players to make them. We have like almost too much control, like how our players are portrayed. So I want to make sure that
yeah,
they're
exactly, and
good.
it's like trying to respect their how they feel about that moment, because like when
Yeah,
you're in it, right, like if you're like arguing, it's like you don't want to see that like 2 days later, right? And
yeah,
it's just like public, so well, you gotta let it like uh set like settle in, right? You gotta
yeah.
kind of reflect on it or let it pass. So I think that, like you're saying, that helped a lot because then we could include those moments, especially if they, and then in the grand scheme of things, if they were like pivotal moments, it's like okay, nice, like now, and if they're okay with it, we can include it.
Yeah. And I think one thing I didn't think about too was like Dane and our general manager, they did like end of season interviews with a lot of players, and then we got some feedback about like the going for gold series, and they like loved it. And it was really cool because I felt like we had open communication with the players, like, hey, can we show this? And we're like, hey, Victor, like, we're gonna show you kind of like really broken up. Is this okay? And he's like, yeah. And I never thought about having to ask the players for these kind of permissions and like respecting their privacy or their egos or whatever else, like, because we're portraying how they look. But because of how the series was portrayed and what we did, like, I feel like we gained a lot of the players' trust too, which is just going to make things easier in the future when it comes to like interviews, asking tough questions, showing like vulnerable moments, because it's like, hey, this is going to help you in the end. We're not here to make like a breaking point that's going to like tarnish your
Yeah,
career for the next 2 years or anything like that. So it should
for
make our job
sure.
easier. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's good to like gain trust, right? And like we were sharing it with like, yeah, with Danon and John and Nick. So it's like I think just keeping that open line, right?
Hmm.
Or like just working together on it has like helped a lot. So
Cool. All
I
right.
mean, looking forward to the next one.
It's gonna be fun. Who knows what's gonna happen? What spiciness is gonna happen? I know everyone's hoping we
Hmm.
run it back, which would be really fun. But uh, I want to talk about the rebranding. That's not a small project.
Like the way throwback.
Yeah, I know. And like, do you even remember that thing that happened? Feels like 12 years ago
Oh, it's
now.
all a blur now. What, did you
So
say 12 years ago?
it feels everything feels like it's been a decade ago. Like
I'm like,
time
how
is
old
so.
are we?
I know, right? I have gray hairs now. Like, come on. um,
I
s-
haven't spotted any yet, but I
oh,
mean, it
good.
would be kind of cool though.
Sure.
Okay, whatever.
um, what? Yeah, I guess like why did we do the? I guess first of all, why did we do the rebrand, and then what was the whole process of like figuring out to do it and deciding what to do? Like,
Okay,
if you remember.
I'm trying to remember because I think like the rebrand was sparked by us picking up a lot of our expansion players. Like because we had just
Oh,
been League of Legends, right, at the
yeah.
time,
Mm.
or before the pre-rebrand.
Yes, pre-rebrand.
um, yeah, yeah.
Blue and
So
gold.
that was, I think that was what kicked it off. But I think we had sort of been like tossing around the idea. I think a little
Hmm.
bit beforehand. Yeah, I'm trying to remember like what the conversations were, but I think it just became like one of our like off-season projects, right?
Hmm.
Um, along with I don't even know what else. It's like something else going on too. I feel like at the time, but anyways, but a lot of it was like prepping for announcing our expansion players, right? And then in conjunction with that was like the rebranding.
Hmm.
And so I think, I mean, the process we went through, it was pretty fast for doing something like what we did, like a new look, a new logo, and then how we are like tied to the Warriors and like
Hmm.
talking to them because like they were part of the process too, right? So a lot of that was it was stressful.
Was
But
it?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like people to take into account, like a lot of like opinions
Hmm.
and feelings and like I think that was like probably the first time I like worked like directly with Kirk, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's like, oh my god,
big guy, big guy.
stressful. But I mean, I learned a ton from it, and I mean, I worked actually the designer on the project too, Will Dub. Shout out to Will. so he, I think you met him too when he was in
Hmm.
LA, but like because we had worked together before in DC.
You and Will.
So yeah. So that was, like, how I knew him, and then I was like, "Oh," like, his focus is branding, like, within design. So
Mm.
that's, like, another thing. It's like, there's, the concentration, within design. So that, you can go so many different routes. But I knew, like, branding was his, like, his for, like, bread and butter. And so I was like, gotta bring him in. And so it was nice to have him to like bounce ideas off of because like we worked a lot on like the look and
Mhm.
the new style and the logo too. But I'm sorry, I don't know if I like missed the second part of the question.
No, just keep going. Just keep going.
Okay,
It's good.
okay. So, um, yeah, I mean, I remember like when we started out, it was like a lot of. Do you just want me to go through like some of the process? I guess.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it'd be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, because when we first started, and it was Daniel too, or Spelzy. I just say Spelzy because I think most people probably know Spelzy, Spelzy and Mark, and we were in SF, and we did like these like little interviews, right?
Hmm.
Like, and we talked to like a lot of different people, or a couple different people from the Warriors, and kind of get their opinion on like the big picture of the company, or like where they see like Golden Guardians going, and like where how we would want to basically retool the look, like because we didn't just change it to change it, it's like, oh, like changing it means like it's not as obvious with the blue and gold, right? That's
Hmm.
the first thing, was like the colors are not going to be that. So like, and that was our biggest visual tie-in to the Warriors,
Hmm.
like blatantly, it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, you can look at it side by side, it's like, oh,
No, I
that's the Warriors.
definitely. Someone saw my old Golden Guardians clothes and they said like, "Oh, like go Warriors" or something like that. I was like, "Yeah." I was
Yeah,
like, "Wait, wait, what? I'm not wearing Warriors stuff."
no.
But so yeah.
I've had that happen to me, but like when I would wear the hoodie, right?
Uh
Like
huh.
we had the one when we first started, it was just the blue one with the yellow logo. Yeah, I was like, oh no, it's not. But I mean, I guess like kind of it is.
Like no, you're. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, part of it was to feel, to create, and we actually talked to Jen Malay, who was think the VP of marketing at the Warriors.
Hmm.
And so she was the one who was like, oh, like to differentiate ourselves. Cause I think it was important to like make the distinction, because we are in a different audience, like different space. Like
Hmm.
esports is not the same as basketball or NBA.
Yeah.
So trying to almost like cater to this audience more, right?
Mm.
And there are the pros and cons to it, but I think like we try to reach that middle ground of like, oh, we're still part of the Warriors family, right? And so that's like, uh, if anyone remembers the logo breakdown, where it's like we still took elements from the old logo, and like the circle is like something that is shared across all the Warriors entities, right? So it's like we still took those into account and then incorporated it into the new logo, right? So it still has
Yeah.
like that meaning behind it. So the key was still trying to like bring, like bring the meaning into the logo. It's not just like a cool logo, right? It's like no, it has like, there's a story behind it. There's meaning to it. And then I think black and gold is just like black and yellow or black and gold. It's like, it's cleaner, and the contrast. There's a lot like design wise you can do with
Hmm.
that. And it spoke more to like I think the direction like we were trying to go toward, and like I think that was like the gist of it. And then at that point, it was just executing on it. And then we were like, uh, doing the expansion video, and then the rebranding video was like I feel like all of that happened in like a month.
Yeah.
Um,
It was
yeah.
crazy. It was stressful.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad. I mean, I remember when we were in SF, right?
Hmm.
And we were watching the game, and we saw the logo and the I think it was the announcement video on
Hmm.
the
For first
screens, and
round
I
of
was like,
expansion
"What?"
players.
I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!
Yeah, this
It's
was
so
on the
awesome!"
court on the jumbotron at the Warriors game, and it was just like, ah, it was so amazing, and it's cool. Like, I don't know if Justin's in here. I just saw he followed the Twitch stream, so shout out to Justin if you're in here. But like, he edited the video, and like, he's a huge Warriors fan. He's from Oakland actually too. So like, seeing his work on the jumbotron was just like, was that like his first edit actually with us? It might have been.
No, 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 because no, wait, no, because Justin did the 2K videos before.
Oh,
But it might have been the first, like, Golden Guardians project, but I can't
gotcha.
remember either. It's
I don't
like,
remember.
yeah, the timeline is all messed up in my
But yeah,
head.
no, it was so hype, and it was really cool to see even our players like um tweeting it and like just being like so hype, and their fans being like, Oh my gosh, that person, like my favorite streamer is on a freaking jumbotron on like one of the best NBA teams like ever. Like, oh my gosh, like yeah, that's like I knew it was big, but then once that happened, it just like validated how big everything was, right? It was so cool to see.
Like I felt like it was like an out of body experience. I still remember it was I think it felt like such a like weight, like it was like lifted off my chest, like of
Hmm.
like this project that we had been working on and stressing about, you know, and it's like and it was also the whole thing with like, you know, you don't know, you never know well like the rebrandings are gonna be received. And
We've
uh
seen that in the LCS amongst the LCS teams.
I know, exactly. So it's just like you know, it's like so nerve-wracking. And I remember like I couldn't some of those days, you know, when those big projects are getting released. I mean, even the like going for gold, it's like my heart. It's just like I can. It's like you will not sleep tonight. It's like try not to look at your phone. Like
I
all
mean, you were
these.
up until 5 a.m. before it got released, right?
I
Something
mean,
like that.
wait for which one? The
The
logo
No,
or the
sorry, the going
branding?
for
Or...
gold.
Oh, you know that was really late, anyways. But like, yeah, I mean, I guess I was already so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But part of it was because of the stress.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
man. So actually, with that, I feel like I think, and I could be wrong, and that's where this question is kind of getting to. I feel like we've been lucky enough to be have a lot of projects kind of just like hit really well, right? Like we launched like new matchup graphics, and people are like, wow, this like art's really cool, or like, I mean, that was like when you were doing the illustrations last year. People were like, wow, this is really cool. Then we did illustrations again
Mhm,
this year, and like even like
mhm.
doing the media day to get all the photos, and we're just like, we've never done this, we haven't seen it done, like what's gonna happen, we think it's cool, and like we've had a lot of projects go well. Do you have an experience where like we've had something that just flopped? I'm trying to think. And if
I
or
don't know. I mean,
should I not bring this up?
there's always those things like here and there where it's like it didn't do as well as we thought it would, right? Or
Hmm.
like it didn't gain as much traction. But I mean, overall, I don't think anything really like was too bad, right?
Yeah,
Like I
no one
think
like flamed us for
overall,
anything.
it's like yeah, overall it was like good. I'd say like it's been pretty good. And should we call it luck?
A little bit of both, I don't know. um
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm waiting for like a huge flop to like just completely break my heart.
No, what the heck? Don't wait. You're waiting for that? I'm not waiting for that at
I'm
all.
waiting for the ball to drop.
But there's always that like that feeling though, you know, like it could happen.
Hmm.
So I get what you're saying. I'm not definitely not waiting for it. I don't want it to happen, but it's like
Yeah,
always like it could go, you know, worst case scenario, you're always gonna be thinking of that.
yeah.
Um,
No, it's
but
interesting
you
because
just prepare better.
yeah, I think like again, coming from a team that was 10th place back to back, we had to like kind of push the bar. We couldn't coast and do easy things. So we always were like, what is going to be completely different? What is crazy? What if we had like put more money into this thing or this project or whatever else? And so far, it really hasn't come to bite us yet. Um, but at the same time, I think it's really not. I think people are respecting that we're doing stuff that are like really fresh and kind of uh out of the norm. Like even trying to think. Oh, like I've totally forgot about this project until recently. Do you remember the WGSI Warriors Gaming Squad
Wait,
Invitational?
well, last year, right? Wasn't that last?
I don't even remember. Probably yeah, it was between season 2 and 3 for our NBA 2K team,
Yep,
and we just finished
yep.
season 3,
Oh yeah,
and
you
like
guys were just like you guys just went up and did this event.
this crazy event that's gonna bring no money, but like kind of this test thing to see like how is it gonna go and like can we sell this and can we do this in the future, and like I remember like we could like let's kind of do something like probably stupid and crazy, and we like went really hard and like made the broadcast quality like really good, and we got really obsessed with it, and we stayed up way too late trying to figure this all that stuff out, and then
It
people were
was
like
you and Johnny, right?
me, Johnny, and Mark. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we just like people, even though we didn't get like crazy viewership, we still got pretty good viewership, and people are like, wow, this looks so cool. And I was like so scared because I'm like, I don't know 2K that well. I'm like really worried because like I don't know how the community is gonna react to this because we're kind of like making something for people that really like love their stuff, and we're telling them like, hey, this is what we're gonna give to this community, and you never know how that's gonna go out. And like another example is the Zane domain thing with the melee
Oh
tournament.
yeah.
Like at least we had people that really knew Smash, and I think everyone at least or most of us were at least like somewhat familiar to some degree. I mean, you guys are all like pretty good
Yeah.
smashers too, so um but like I was
I'll
like
take it. Okay,
and
but working with Zane was
mhm,
really smooth, and like he's great, and
mhm,
Eric and Quinn, right? Like I
mhm.
think like overall we just had a good like there were some hiccups with like all the moving pieces, but like overall it's like I felt like that was super awesome, like how we came together, right?
Yeah.
And worked on it. Yeah, sorry. You were in the middle of saying something.
No, I don't even remember what I was saying. But yeah, that like worked out really well. Like again, we're going to a really passionate community, Smash, but we're known as a League of Legends brand. And we're like, we're gonna try to do something that we think is really cool, and we're trying to respect the audience and the community as best as possible. And like at first I was like thinking like, oh yeah, we kind of got lucky. We like did enough research. But I think now that I think about it, we've just like always done our due diligence. We've like contacted the right people. With like the 2K one, we had we hired people to run the tournament that knew the 2K like amateur scene tournament scene, and then like a caster that knew
Right, yeah.
2K. For the Zane thing, we got Zane's input on a lot of stuff, and then Eric and Quinn
Like
who know the
writing
Smash
it
scene.
and
So I
then
guess,
yeah, yeah.
and this event that I don't even know if it's public, but like the one that we're doing next is like we're really leveraging the community and people that know the community well enough to like, I guess we just like tell us what's cool. We have some crazy ideas, and then like we're gonna just like polish the crap out of this and make it amazing.
I
But
mean, you gotta use your research. I think that's like finding the right people or making sure we have the right resources, right? Especially
mhm.
when we're aware, right? It's like we're not gonna pretend like we know that, not pretend, but we're not gonna act like we're like experts on like that game or that
Mm,
community when we're like we have so many games now that, well, maybe not as much as some other orgs, but now we have like a lot more games to cover. So uh we have to utilize like our team properly because it's like there's no way we're gonna like be experts in all of these games. So we do have to leverage that. And I think that's like the key, right? Or else like we're just gonna be like second guessing ourselves all the time.
yeah, yeah. Um, can we talk about some of the artwork that you've worked on and how that's been perceived? Because I feel like when it
Oh,
comes to again like our branding, we did the big logo change and color change, and that's like that in itself is a ton of work. But then even after that, I felt like our brand, our voice, the way we look and represent ourselves, we've had to still figure that out over that first year, even now up to this point. But like it's starting to solidify, and people are like really vibing with. For example, the photo shoot was Crystal's idea. We put together a mood board on Pinterest, which was a really fun experience.
what do you call it? Street
Yeah,
Regal.
street regal. That's right. So
The
that was
keyword.
that was your idea. And then a lot of the illustrations and the way we approach like our social series and what those look like and the graphics that we put, the photos that we put out, um, has been really well received by the community. Like it's always so cool to see people like, wow, this is really cool. I want this like where's the desktop version of this so I can put it on my computer, you know? Or like people
Yeah.
actually putting photos of our players at their phone background, which I think is like so funny. Like I would have done it
I
in the
know, it's so
past, but
crazy
now
to me.
yeah, but now I'm just like, I know this kid. Like
I
he
know,
doesn't
it's like I
shower.
feel
Like
like
why are
it'd
you
be
putting him
kind
on
of
your
weird if, if like they're on
yeah,
your
so
phone.
yeah, I don't know where the question is, but I'm curious just like how those came to be and like what your thought process is, I guess, with those. And I know there's
For
a
wait,
lot.
yeah, wait, for which part? Like the illustration side of it?
Whatever you think is most interesting, because I honestly think like it's really cool, and I just want to hear more about it and like how it came to be. Like, what? Okay, how about this? What is your process for trying to figure out like what you're gonna do with these kind of brand stuff? Because that I'm completely clueless, and I think a lot of people that
Oh,
might be like designers or artists too could benefit from hearing like what your process might be and learning from that.
okay. Whoa, hold on. I feel like there's like a lot of questions in that.
Sorry,
So there's a
what's your
process
process?
one.
Yeah.
Just like you mean like for like coming up with the idea,
Hmm.
or
Coming up and executing it, I guess.
I guess I mean it depends on like what we're trying to achieve, right? It's like we talk about like the creative briefs all the time, or
Hmm.
just like knowing our objective is like really really important. Because like for example, like the matchup graphics, I'll just use those, right? Because
Hmm.
like that was recent, and um, the point there, right, was like, oh, we're trying to like highlight uh our team versus another team,
Hmm.
and so we already have this like mascot, right, the guardian, and basically putting and like I think we've been trying to focus on like storylines and like the concept of the story um throughout like our brand. And so with this I feel like the opportunity to tell the story of us versus another team through the illustration, through illustrations, and like you have a lot of you have more freedom, right, to convey what that is versus like if you used maybe for a photo of a player, because we had done that for spring, right? And
Hmm.
also we weren't able to do another media day, so it was like I think coming up with the solutions, right, because we have all these hurdles, or like we have these things to take into account, because it's like, oh, we don't have new assets, but we can make new assets through
Hmm.
illustration, right? Or do through design and illustration, that combination. So like that was like why I think it pushed me to do this route. But I also think it's like with illustration, you just have um more leeway or freedom to like show, create the image you want. And that's why I think illustration is so strong, or like I think it's a tool that I want to keep using more in a lot of our graphics or video, just across the board,
Hmm.
including it because of you can really add your voice through that too, because like there's only so much you can do without it. And I think I'm just so tied to it because it's like something I've always incorporated, like I think even when I was in college, up till now, it's like I always wanted to like draw, or always wanted to include that somehow. And I'm not in the position where I'm like drawing as much, right? I think I did
Hmm.
some of the player ones this past split, but we had Monty who was doing the matchup illustrations that I was
Hmm.
working with, and then uh basically like working with him on it. It's like I also really like working with illustrators too, and like Wade, who worked on the YouTube like poster, the Going for Gold
Hmm.
illustrations. Like, uh, I I think it just adds such a unique energy. There's so much like style to it, so much flair. I think it adds. But I think that's like what drives me to want to do that more.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. I hope that answered the
Yeah, yeah.
question.
So actually, another thing I kind of want to go off of that with is like, what do you think esport, or at least maybe I don't know how esports in general or just LCS teams, like, what do you think when it comes to design or branding that we need to do better as a whole?
Hmm.
Is it something that you're like really sick of seeing, or like
Oh, is
you're
there
like,
something like I'm sick of seeing?
or like just untapped potential that like people, no one's doing this, and people need to start doing this, and we're gonna do it next split or something. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I feel like I always just want to see more, like, I don't know. I feel like more animated pieces, in
Mm.
terms of like illustration and animation. But that's always like that's the heaviest. I think one of the heavier lifts, right?
Hmm.
That takes a lot of attention to have it be good. But I think there are ways you can like, you know, you can still make it cool, or cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like I should avoid using that word. You can, but for simplicity's sake, like, yeah, you can still like make it look cool, and not have to invest so much time into it. But I think I guess like what we could do better is like maybe I don't know. It's like hard to say because I feel like we are like still going through the process, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like I don't know if our voice is like clear enough, right? Or I don't know if like maybe sometimes like our like I guess with hmm like I'm thinking what would the next photo shoot be? Like if we
Yeah.
did a photo shoot or if we did like an announcement video for the roster, it's like now I'm like, oh, like what could that be? Because we didn't do that. We didn't do that last year or like
Mm-mm.
last
Like,
December. So I'm it's just like, oh, that's untapped potential. Like so yeah, like oh that there's always that could go, That could
yeah.
be really exciting. And yeah, I think because I'm pretty sure we just did like a picture last time. I'm trying to remember.
Wow, I don't even remember either. I think we didn't really. Must have been a picture. We didn't even have a team
I
photo,
don't
right? That probably
No,
was
I
an
don't think so.
illustration. Or no, we've only done like team illustrations for playoffs, right? Man, I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. 'Cause oh my god.
Man. So, are there any? I know we're like kind of running out of time. Are there any like big things that you're hoping you're able to like accomplish, Golden Guardians, like to accomplish this upcoming year? Do you have any like
Ooh.
personal goals that you're thinking about with like branding or art or creative direction?
Oh my god. That's like I don't know. To be honest, I haven't like thought of pinpointed, like
Mm-hmm.
what those things are. It's just like, oh, now that I feel like the thing is like, oh, now that I've done um I guess like as creative director, I've done like a stream event, right? Like with
Mm-hmm.
the Octagon or Jane's Domain, and then the YouTube series, right? It's like now that there's like that experience under the belt, it's like okay, I think going into 2021, right? Like starting off on a better foot because like we have that experience now, and I have that experience, and I'm like feel more like comfortable. Not to say like comfortable because I still think like coming up with those new ideas and like taking it as it comes is like always going to be a challenge,
Yeah, yeah.
and always making sure we're like putting out something we're like proud to put out, and that's always stressful. It's like, but it's exciting. It's like I think it's like, oh, it's always challenging, but it's like a good stress,
Mm-hmm.
because then like once like oh like I know like we can get through it, and once it's over, it's like it just feels so satisfying. um, but I think yeah, it's just like oh now that we've done it, we can do it better. I just know it's like oh we can. I already know like what aspects it's like oh we can work on more, or like if we give ourselves like more time here
Mm-hmm.
or wherever, like you can do so much with it. So it's just like figuring that out without having to think about too much, or like you're just aware of the problems, right? So
Yep,
then
yep.
you know how to address it. That's mostly it, I think.
Cool. All right.
I feel like it'll be more or less the same, right? Like you not more or less the same, but there will be a lot of similarities. So
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
least
I have no idea what's gonna. I never like. I can barely assume that things are gonna be the same. We're like, oh, so we're gonna do. Remember this thing? So we're gonna do double that, and whatever. Like something's just gonna come out of nowhere. And be like, oh, okay. How do we survive this?
maybe I'm sure that'll come up because I feel like last year we were probably thinking, oh yeah, 2020, yeah, we got
Yeah,
this.
we're like, oh, we finally got our footing, and it's like, whoa, gosh, cool.
It'll be exciting because I think we'll have more people on staff coming up,
Mhm.
right? So having a bigger team will be interesting and more insight. So I think that'll be cool. And then
Yeah.
growing the design team, which I don't know if anyone's listening or anyone here is a designer, but we are accepting applications until Monday. So you got time.
The tweet was a little off.
Yeah, that was misleading because I was like, wait, I was like, it just went up 2 days ago.
Yeah, I know. And then we didn't even tweet about it until like yesterday. And
Yeah.
then it's like 1 day. Like, what? This is
Yeah, I
crazy.
was like, "Oh, wait," so I had to double check today, but yeah, there's a little bit of time. It's
Cool.
not a ton, but get it in there.
Is there anything else we should talk about? Anything interesting or questions or topics?
Hmm, I don't know.
Do you have any questions
Just
for me?
whoa. Sam already asked you so many questions. I don't know. I don't think so.
Cool.
Not off the top of my head.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Crystal. It was really fun talking to you. Good
Of
talking
course.
again after our such long vacation so far we've already had.
Yeah.
um,
Feels
so
great.
yeah, do you want people to find your Twitter or socials? Like, do you want to plug them at all?
um
Or are you that's like, don't find me at all, go away?
oh I mean I guess like a lot of I've noticed a lot of people in esports use Twitter a lot. So I mean if you don't already follow Sam and saw his tweet with my name in it. I'm Noodle Brains if you want to look me up. Feel free to message me. I'm open to talking about anything like design or creative related, or if you're like going through the same, like I feel like I'm always learning and I always want to learn more. So it's like I am happy to like connect with who I can. And like if you either work in esports already or you don't, it's like I would love to talk either way. So yeah,
Cool.
that's me.
Yeah. I'll put her Twitter also in whatever description or links come with this wherever you're watching this, guys. So yeah, with that, Crystal, thanks again. And
Thanks, Sam.
that no problem. That's this episode. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
All right, bye.